friends and family. Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Bazaar. I'm Jessica.
I'm Montana.
We hope you're all well, and we thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. How are you doing, everyone?
I guess I'll just speak for everyone. I had something weird happen to me, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the room I'm in now, so the door was, someone shut my door. So how do I want to start this? When I came down the next morning, like the night after we did our podcast, so we did that Sunday night. So I came down Monday morning and my door was closed. So I just thought it was Ryan. I was like, okay, that's weird. I don't know why he shut my door. And then, so last night I was like, so why did you shut my office door? And he was like, I thought you shut the office door. He's like, it wasn't me. He's like, I woke up in the morning because he gets up before me. And he said that he saw it shut. And he was like, well, that's weird. And then just kind of went on with his day. But he thought it was me. And I was like, how was it me when I went up before you went up last night? So
The ghosts are about.
there's a lot of energy in this room. So someone, I don't know, shut my door, and then Ryan was like, well, maybe they didn't like the shelves I put up. So they were trying. So I don't know.
Maybe they don't like change.
Nope. So yeah, that's my only weird update other than trying to get a million things done since I leave tomorrow for, quote, vacation. I don't really call it vacation. I'll just call it a getaway.
Yeah, I'd call it vacation. Shit, I haven't been anywhere in so long.
Yeah, I haven't been anywhere since October, so I'm going a little stir crazy. So this is coming at the right time.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Chilling. I'm good. Just been working on our social media stuff and just focusing on getting super healthy. That's kind of been my obsession right now, is like really just simplifying my food, because I already eat pretty healthy, but I don't know, like I went through some shit last month that really just kind of scared me. So I've just really been hyper focused on getting super healthy in my 40s, baby. Yeah.
Well,
Just really boring shit.
well, I think you definitely look better than you were last month.
Yeah, I looked like The Walking Dead last month for sure. I can remember we did our first long distance episode and we didn't end up putting it up because I just looked terrible. And you were even like, I don't normally mention people's appearance, but you look tired. Like, girl, you don't even know.
It's like,
And Tony is sick again. He started
great.
feeling sick last night, and I was like, no, you're just dehydrated. No, you just need some nutrients, because he literally eats once a day, and it's not till we eat dinner. And the whole day he drinks coffee. And I'm like, you can't do that anymore. Like, you're in your mid 40s. It's not working for your body. But lo and behold, he's actually sick because he woke up this morning worse. So,
oh,
yeah, that's my life right now. Taking care of him.
Well, tell him I hope he feels better.
I will. Thank you.
Hopefully it's not the bird flu.
I know. I don't think it is.
I'm just kidding.
I think it's just run-of-the-mill flu.
Yeah. I don't think we have any updates. You think we have any updates?
No, we're just chugging along in the background. We're doing a lot of extra stuff now, though. I will say that, because we're putting our YouTube videos up now. And then we're making shorts of those. So you can see all of that on our social medias if you want to kind of get a sneak peek. If you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of get a sneak peek of a short of a video that we're going to post later, either that week or the following week. We haven't decided yet, but it's been fun.
Yeah,
It
I
just
think,
feels like we're constantly evolving.
yes, we are. And I think the YouTube videos, because they take a lot longer to edit, so I think they're going to pretty much come out the week after.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because it's a lot to do because we film on Tuesdays and then we post our podcasts on Thursdays, and that just doesn't give enough time to do a reel and a video. So yeah.
Yeah, well, plus
Our
Jessica adds a lot of stuff inside the
yeah.
video, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of like little hidden eggs and stuff, so you kind of gotta just watch it to
Yeah.
understand why it takes so long.
Yes.
She working hard behind the scenes.
It's fun. I enjoy it. Doesn't even feel like work, baby.
That's good because when we're at work, it feels like work.
Sure does.
All right. You ready to dive in?
I'm excited. Yes. I've been looking forward to this since you told me about it.
Yep, it's a lot. I'm sure from the title, reading this right now, you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing the Brothers Grimm.
Yay! I watched this movie so many times when I was young.
We
Heath
watched it last
Ledger.
night. We watched it last night.
Aw.
I wasn't a huge fan.
I don't remember it very well because again, I watched it when I was young, but
I watched
I
it when it
loved
came out.
Heath Ledger was like my big crush when I was in high school. I was obsessed with him.
He's so young in it. It came out in
Oh,
2005. And so it has Matt Damon and then Heath Ledger. Matt Damon.
Damon.
2005. I just felt it was kind of all over the place because they try to fit in so many different fairy tales. And what was the weirdest thing to me was they had British accents, but yet they're German. So I was thrown off by that. That was a little confusing.
Well, I will say I watch a couple German people on YouTube, and I don't know if they can tend to sound a little more British, I suppose, but I feel like they work at it. So
Yeah, they sounded really British. And I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be
maybe
like.
they really sucked at the German accents. They're like, yeah, just sound British. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, clearly they don't follow the actual Brothers Grimm because, in the movie they're like con artists and they make their money trying to scam villages on trying to get rid of like witches or something like fairy tale like. So
I need to watch it again because I forget it. I forget most of it.
it was entertaining. It was just all over the place and didn't follow like the brothers' story.
I remember really enjoying the aesthetic of the movie. I liked that part a lot.
Well, it's very fairy tale like, and that's definitely right up your alley.
Yes.
A lot of animal deaths in it, though. So some of that was, I didn't like that. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Can we just keep it like fairy tale like and leave the animals alone?
Right. I gotta mess with the animals. Here we go again.
I know. We're not going to get on our animal soapbox.
No.
But yeah, so we're doing the Brothers Grimm, and it's going to be a 2-parter. And then the first part, I think, is just going to be about them and how they became to be famous writers. And then the second part is when we're going to do the fairy tales.
Okay.
Like the differences between Disney versions or other people's versions and their versions. Because as we know, the Brothers Grimm, they're dark fairy tales.
Yes.
Which I think are so much better than Disney.
Oh, 100% agree. I can remember. Do you remember Aesop's Fables?
No, I've never heard of that.
I used to watch that as a kid too, and it was pretty dark. I definitely like the darker stuff. Don't get me wrong. I liked The Little Mermaid, but
The Little Mermaid is probably, I think, one of the darkest of the Disney stories. Just know that the Brothers Grimm do not usually have happy endings in their stories. So, bum bum. All right, are we ready?
Let's do it.
It's a lot to unpack. Okay, the Brothers Grimm. Jacob Ludwig Karl Grimm was born on January 4th, 1785. Just 13 months later, on February 24th, 1786, his brother Wilhelm Karl Grimm was born. There were 4 more children, so we had Karl, Ferdinand, Ludwig, and Charlotte. And Charlotte's the most normal name in that whole entire family.
Ludwig. If I get another animal, I'm
Ferdinand.
Get a cat and name him Ludwig.
My grandfather's name is Karl. So 4 more children. Like, their parents were busy. Karl, Ferdinand, Ludwig, and Charlotte.
Oh, that just reminded me. I had a client and their name was Coral. All I could think of was The Walking Dead.
Coral!
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 Anyway.
I mean, that's all I think of now, too, when I see Coral. Okay. Their parents, Philip and Dorothea Grimm, were very happy. And Philip Grimm worked as a lawyer and served as the town's clerk, and Dorothea ran the household. They had 2 housemaids, Gretchen and Marie, and sometimes Gretchen would sneak the boys bread and cheese and tell them fairy tales. And at this time, there was no country called Germany, just a lot of German-speaking states that were part of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Grimm family lived in a small town in the state of Hesse-Kassel. And from an early age, Jacob and Will were inseparable. So they slept together in one bed, they studied at one desk, and they pretended to hunt turkeys and spied on neighbors from their father's study window. Basically the Grimm family they were very close. They seemed like a very close, happy family. Jacob and Will helped take care of their younger siblings, and their Aunt Julian taught the brothers to read and write, while their parents taught the children to be proud of being German and to trust in God in difficult times. In 1791, when Jacob was 6 and Will was 5, their father became the judge in a nearby town, so the Grimm family moved into a beautiful home with a huge lime tree out front.
Lucky.
It seems like a very nice picture.
Yeah.
By 1792, war had broken out in France, and the countries surrounding France were pulled into the conflict. French soldiers wandered the streets near the Grimms' home. And Dorothea did not allow Jake and Will outdoors when the soldiers were near. And Philip was often away from home, but Jacob and Will were very proud of their father, especially when they saw him in his uniform. But on January 10th, 1796, 6 days after Jacob's 11th birthday, their father died suddenly.
Aww.
And the Grimm family was devastated. And after their father's death, they now had very little money. Because he was the breadwinner, you know?
Yeah.
So Dorothea could not work and raise 6 children on her own, and one of the boys' aunts helped Dorothea around the house. She also arranged for Jacob and Will to study at school near her home in the city of Kassel.
Makes sense why none of their stories have a happily ever after.
No,
They didn't
and
get one.
you'll also see, I mean, we'll go into that in the next episode, but you also see a common theme in their stories. The boys were sad to leave their mother and siblings, but Dorothea insisted they go because this was their one chance for a good education. Which is like another thing about the movie last night, is that they made them seem so stupid. Like a goofy type of stupid, but I'm like, the boys actually are very intelligent, so that kind of bugged me a little bit, but I know it's not like the point of it. It was just to be goofy. Let's see. So at their new school, the brothers felt like outsiders and they were behind the other students. Their classmates made fun of them, even their teachers. Can't get away with that nowadays.
Mm-mm.
But Jacob and Will worked hard, and each morning before school, they spent 4 hours being tutored in Latin and French, and they also studied geography, natural history, and other subjects for 6 hours each day. And soon their hard work paid off, and Jacob especially excelled at his studies. By the time he graduated, he was first in his class. And in the spring of 1802, Jacob was accepted at the University of Marburg. And for the first time in their lives, the brothers would live apart. Jacob decided to study law, as his father had, but he found he wasn't really interested in the subject. He later said that he would have chosen botany, the study of plants. Jacob spent hours wandering the hillsides around Marburg, sketching and admiring flowers and trees. And in the fall of 1803, Will joined Jacob in Marburg, and he also decided to study law. But the brothers' love for literature just kept growing. So while their classmates spent their free time drinking beer and gambling, Jacob and Will would discuss books and dance and sometimes acted out plays. One of their favorites was Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. So we actually changed positions if you're watching on YouTube.
Yes, I was having some technical issues in my last setup and I had to move locations. So here we are.
She's so mad about it.
So angry because this lighting is so bad. So I apologize for that. It's just hitting one side of my face and there's just nothing I can do about it. We'll get it sorted soon.
They would even dress in costumes, and the brothers also loved to tell each other children's stories, myths, fables, and fairy tales. The brothers had a favorite professor. I'm gonna butcher his name.
That's what we do here.
Frederick Karl von Savigny? It's German, sorry.
I'm pretty sure you butchered it.
Yeah.
Big words.
Odd words. They really enjoyed his classes because he encouraged questions from his students and asked many of his own, and Frederick thought the brothers were smart and talented. He noticed that they enjoyed discussing many of the same topics that he did, so he invited them to his house to meet other writers and thinkers. One evening, Jacob walked into Frederick's library, seeing that every wall was covered with books, and he was so amazed by this. He noticed a volume of German songs from the Middle Ages. He took it off the shelf and began to read it. He couldn't understand it because the songs were written in an older version of German and it was different from the German that Jacob spoke. But still, he was fascinated by songs that emphasized German pride, culture, and history. So the brothers started spending many evenings at Frederick's home, and he taught them how to study old manuscripts and to pay close attention to the details that made these historical books important. Apparently, at this time, many professors taught that the history of ancient Greece and Rome were more important than German history, literature, and ideas, and Frederick disagreed, and so did the brothers. So, spending these nights at Frederick's house, the brothers met many writers and artists who also cared about German history. This is where they met a poet named Clemens Brentano. One of Brentano's ideas was to collect German folk songs that people have sung for generations. Just like fairy tales, they were rarely written down, and Brentano was afraid the songs were going to be forgotten, so he wanted to publish them as a book. In 1804, Frederick moved to Paris, France, and Jacob joined him and dropped out of the university. Why are you banging shit over there?
I just got caught on my cord. Oops. Jesus, what a shit show.
I'm trying to talk you.
I'm sorry.
So Frederick moved to Paris, France. I've been to Paris.
Where haven't you been?
I know. Every time I watch a movie or show, they'll name like the city or country or state, and I'm like, oh, I've been there. And Ryan's like, shut up. Like, I can't help it. I'm Johnny Cash, baby. I've been everywhere. All right. So Frederick moved to Paris, France, and Jacob joined him, dropping out of the university. Jacob would write to Will describing the people, the food, and the buildings, and this was the first time Jacob saw a world beyond the small towns of Germany. Brentano's collection of German folk songs were published the same year that Jacob moved to Paris, and it was called The Boy's Magic Horn. It included an introduction that challenged all German writers to copy down and preserve as many folk songs as possible. And so the brothers decided to take up the challenge. Although they lived apart, Jacob and Will wrote letters back and forth asking if the other had discovered any new stories or songs for children. The brothers were very interested in starting their own collection. And after living in Paris for 10 months, Jacob returned to Kassel where Will, their mother, and their siblings were living. And Will studied for his final exams at the university, and Jacob found a job as a clerk at the state's war office. And war was coming. So, do you know who the Emperor of France was in 1805?
Hell no.
Napoleon.
Yeah, history and me. No bueno.
No, I don't like history either.
Especially specific dates. Oh, give me a break. I can't even remember my family's birthdays.
Napoleon Bonaparte?
I've always said Bonaparte, but that's probably very Americanized. So.
Well, Napoleon in 1805. Tina, you fat lard, come get your dinner.
Idiotic movie that was. It's so great.
I feel like Napoleon should be considered a cult classic or something.
Yeah, for sure.
La Fan de. All right, we can make Napoleon comments all day. All right. So in 1805,
I can't remember shit.
I can't remember shit. It's written down. That's how I know it. All right. The year 1805, and Napoleon had taken control of Italy, Austria, Egypt, and Turkey. And he was coming for Germany. On November 1st, 1806, French soldiers seized Kassel and the German noblemen fled. The brothers Anne, who had brought them to Kassel for school, also left, and almost overnight the entire town changed. So French, not German, was now the language spoken in Castle, and life became very difficult for Jacob and Will. Like, that would suck. That'd be like if, someone takes over or like an English city and now we have to speak Spanish or something, It's a language barrier. Their home was occupied by foreigners, and their favorite aunt no longer lived nearby, so the brothers felt very alone. Jacob quit his job, and Will could not find work, so to take their minds off all their troubles, they concentrated on collecting German fairy tales. They would scour libraries and bookshops for fairy tales, but they had little luck finding any. And then, in May 1808, Dorothea Grimm suddenly died. And their mother had been the center of their family life, and it was her love and support that had created such a close and happy home. So this was a very difficult time for the Grimm family. Charlotte, that is sad. Charlotte ironed clothes, and neighbors shared their food, and Jacob and Will helped with the housework. And still, just like Tony, they only ate one meal a day.
And probably not by choice like him.
No. Sounds like they did not have a choice. Then in July, King Jerome, Napoleon's brother, who now ruled Castle, hired Jacob to run the palace library. There were 12,000 books in the library, and no one but the king, queen, and librarian were allowed to read them. But still, it was the perfect job for Jacob. He spent his days reading and studying, and he was paid to do it. So with French secret police roaming the city, Jacob and Will retreated to their study. They studied German history and literature that was written hundreds of years earlier, and many of the books they wanted to read were in old and foreign languages. But Jacob and Will were not bothered by this. They literally taught themselves to read over 10 languages, both ancient and modern, and they did all of this without language guides or textbooks. Like I said, they're very intelligent.
I was going to say, I see why you said that. You couldn't believe they made him seem dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I could not imagine learning that many languages. I can't even learn one. I can't even speak English right. Shit.
Same. I can't even pronounce names. So yeah, no, the brothers are very smart, and I love the fact that they have each other. It's like I said, they were so close. They're best friends, and I like that.
I love it. It reminds me of my son and my nephew. They're very close like that. It's very
and
sweet.
they make music together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, the brothers literally taught themselves to read over 10 languages. And I feel like ancient language is not easy to learn.
And back then, when you didn't have things like
Siri or
Siri, or I mean the programs that teach you different languages. So they were literally just studying it in books and teaching themselves. That's crazy. Crazy smart to be able to do that.
I know, when I was going back, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and not to be able to hear it spoken. That's the thing. It's like they were doing it
that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
No, I went back and was editing, and I don't think nighttime is the best time for us. Like, as the night goes on, like, my brain really stops functioning, like, less than it does during the day, because I'm just that smart. And we could not think of words to say at all. And I was like, yeah, nighttime's not for us.
Yeah, I did like the vibe of it, but I think we both faded toward the end.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Yesterday I was like doing so much, and then it was like 8:30, and then Ryan was like asking me questions about what we talked about, like for description. I'm like, you know what, Ryan? I don't even know. I'm sorry, I'm shutting down. So they are very intelligent, and of all of all the literature they read, Jake and Will still loved reading fairy tales the best. So while many people thought fairy tales were childish, the brothers believed that fairy tales were hidden treasures of German culture and values. The brothers wanted to remind people what it meant to be German, even while under French rule and especially during a time of war. They thought saving German fairy tales was the way to do it. And before people used writing to record information, they handed down their history, beliefs, and a way of life by telling the stories. And fairy tales were important because not only did they provide entertainment, they also taught children about growing up. Fairy tales were about facing challenges and overcoming them. And no matter how big a giant might be or how scary a dragon is, the hero is always able to defeat it. And as more people learned to read and write, fewer and fewer cultures told stories from memory. The Grimms were educated young men who were trained to find information in books, and unfortunately, no one had thought fairy tales were important enough to write down. The brothers now realized that they needed to go to the source, the storytellers. So, example, Cinderella had been told for hundreds of years in many European countries, even before French author Charles Perrault wrote down his version. And in each country, the story had a different title with the characters having different names, and it was Charles who added the pumpkin carriage, the fairy godmother, and Cinderella's glass slipper to the story. And in the German version that the Grimms found, Cinderella does not have a fairy godmother, but receives help from a wishing tree that grows on her mother's grave. But we'll get into fairy tales next time. The brother thought Charles had done a good job, but they wanted a collection of German tales. And local women seemed to be the best sources for these stories. The Grimms' next-door neighbor, Her Wilde, had 4 daughters who all loved folk tales. And the Wildes passed along many other stories to the brothers. Even the Wildes' nanny and housekeeper, Marie Moller, or Old Marie, had several stories. Also, I would love the last name Wilde.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a cool one.
I love that last name. One of them was a German version of Little Red Riding Hood called Little Red Cap. And another pair of sisters, you know what? I'm not even going to say the names because I can't even pronounce the names. They're very German. No. But they knew a dozen stories, including several of the most famous Briar Rose, Tom Thumb, and Snow White. And I believe Briar Rose is as we know, a Sleeping Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers, farmers, and fishermen also told tales to the brothers. A retired soldier told Jacob several stories in exchange for a pair of pants.
Oh.
The soldier later told Jacob that he thought of him twice a day whenever he was putting on and taking off his pants. And for 6 years, the brothers worked on fairy tales, and it took them time to collect the stories as well as to organize and edit them. Like, you think, though, if they're going person to person and writing down these stories, that's going to take a long time. In 1812, a friend of the brothers, Arnim, visited them. When he read their manuscript, he immediately set off to Berlin to find a publisher. I do like Berlin, I'm not going to lie. Because I've been there.
What do you like about it?
It's just a different culture. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just like, it's a vibe. It's a cool vibe.
Have you been to Munich?
I actually have a layover there.
I want to go there. There's actually, well, it's not in Munich. There's a goth festival in Germany once a year. It's Wave Gothic Treffen, I think is what it's called, but they call it Vigety. And I think it's only like 1 or 2 hours from Munich. I think that would be so cool to like stay in Munich and then travel to the festival because it's like 3 or 4 days long. That'd be a fun trip.
But you can find us at patreon.com/weeklybazaar.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to keep plugging
Please and thank
away. One of these days it's going to work.
you. Shameless plugs.
We work hard, okay?
We do.
Okay. So yeah, their friend, he sent the manuscript to Berlin to find a publisher. So George Andres Reimer agreed to make the Grimms' 86 stories into a book. So they collected 86 fairy tales.
Wow.
And just 5 days before Christmas, Children's and Household Tales by the Brothers Grimm was published. And Children's and Household Tales was an immediate success. The arrival of the fairy tales gave the German people a renewed sense of pride in their country, just as the brothers had hoped. And all 900 copies of this book were sold within a few short months. So children would read the fairy tales over and over again. And adults loved the book too, but some thought that the fairy tales were too violent. One mother told Will she refused to let her children read the book because of one story. And in the story, children are tricked into killing their friends.
Ooh.
But Will defended the story by saying his own mother had told it to him as a child, and as a result, it made him play with his friends more carefully. So they always have a hidden lesson in their stories. And being such a success, their publisher immediately asked for more fairy tales. So Will began to travel to different towns to meet storytellers, and he was amazed how famous the fairy tales had made him and Jacob. And storytellers all across Germany had heard of the brothers and were very willing to tell Will their stories. While Will worked to collect stories for their new book, Jacob began to worry about his job at the library because Napoleon was losing power. And King Jerome was scared he would not be the ruler of Kassel for much longer. So King Jerome ordered Jacob to put up the palace's important books and works of art and ship them to France. And of course, Jacob was very, he was upset about this. And these were valuable works of German art and literature, and he didn't want the French to have them. And he tried to convince the king that none of it was worth taking, but he didn't succeed, and they were sent to France. And in October of 1813, wagons and carriages rushed past the Grimms' house, and Jake... I keep wanting to say Jake, because in the movie last night, they just went by Will and Jake.
Mm-hmm.
So
which one was Jake? Was it Heath?
Yeah, Jacob was Heath, and then Will was Matt Damon.
I asked because Heath is Will in A Knight's Tale. Did you ever see that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, he's William Wallace, or not William Wallace. I don't know what his last name is, but yeah, he's Will in that one, so I get it mixed up.
Yeah,
anyway.
So I made Ryan watch it with me last night because he's never seen it. And he was like, "Oh, the movie can't be that old." And then he saw Heath Ledger. He's like, "Oh, never mind."
What year did it even come out?
2005.
2005.
So I was in high school.
Oh, so I was out of high school then. I graduated in 2000.
Yeah. But they would just use their nicknames. So I keep seeing Jacob and I want to call him Jake. It's like, no. And Will is just easier to say than Wilhelm.
Wilhelm.
So if I go back and forth between Jacob and Jake, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to. it's just Jake is the easiest thing that comes out. So again, in October of 1813, wagons and carriages rushed past the Grimms' home, and Jacob woke to find the French fleeing town. The Germans were finally free, and a month later, the brothers' favorite aunt returned to Castle. And Jacob and Will joined the crowd dancing and celebrating in the street. And a couple months later, Jacob became secretary to a German government official. He made 2 trips to Paris to retrieve the very same books and paintings he had shipped to France. Will became the secretary to the librarian in Castle, where he was very busy editing the 2nd volume of fairy tales. In the 1st volume, Will had kept many of the stories just as they'd been told to him. But for their 2nd book, he made the stories simpler and easier to understand. Oh God. He even changed many names of the original titles. Rumpelstiltskin? No.
Rumpelstiltskin?
No, but the story became Rumpelstiltskin, so it's like Rumpelstiltskin. I don't know.
Rumpelforeskin.
I'm so sorry. This is why they simplify things for us, okay? Because we can't even pronounce them. Okay, it's Rumpenstiltschen.
Oh, so it's not rumpled foreskin. Gotcha.
No, where are my German guys at? Rumpelstiltskin? I don't know. But that's when it became Rumpelstiltskin. And then little brother and sister became, do you know?
Hansel and Gretel?
Yeah. Piece of cake.
Mm-hmm.
I can say Hansel and Gretel. Let's see. In January 1815, Will sent the 2nd fairy tale volume to Jacob, who was now living in Vienna. Jacob did not like that the book was much thinner than the first, and was also upset that Will had not included all of his footnotes. And Jacob's notes had been about the history of the fairy tales, but Will wanted the 2nd volume to be better suited for children and not scholars. I can just picture 2 siblings fighting. Been there.
Same.
Well, I mean, obviously, the brothers must have worked through their differences, because later that year, the 2nd collection of 70 fairy tales were published, with a few more of Jacob's footnotes included. And Jacob lived in Vienna for almost 2 years. In April 1815, he received tragic news from Will that the brothers' aunt had died.
Aw, everybody's dying.
I know. They lost their mom, dad, now their aunt.
And how old are they at this point?
Honestly, I don't... Well, so in April 1815, she died, and then the brothers were born in 1785 and 1786.
Oh, okay. They were a little older.
Oh, so they were in their late 30s.
Yeah.
All right.
But still, she was pretty much all that they had left, wasn't she?
Well, I feel like if they were in their late 30s, and their aunt just died, I feel like she, was older, so that means that she probably lived a long time for that period of time. Because I feel like they didn't live that long back then. Her death had an enormous impact on the brothers, and as soon as he could, Jacob returned home to Castle, and then the brothers they decided to never live apart again. So for the next 13 years, Jacob and Will worked at the library in Castle together, and Will continued to edit the fairy tales, but both brothers turned to other projects. In 1816, Will published 2 editions of German legends, a collection of stories rooted in history. Neither of them became as popular as the fairy tales, though. And Jacob began studying the history of German language. In 1819, he published German grammar, and this had never been done before. People knew that languages such as French, Spanish, Italian, and Latin were connected to one another, but Jacob proved that German, Greek, and even Sanskrit, a language often spoken in parts of India, were also connected to French and Spanish. Jacob also discovered that words follow patterns and when they change from language to language. So this rule is called Grimm's law. It explained why words such as the English word mother and the German word Mutter were so similar.
I feel like there are a lot of similarities between German and English. Like, if I was going to learn a language, I think German would be the easiest for me to do because a lot of the words sound similar.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Because they say Spanish usually is the second easiest language to learn. So I feel like German would be hard.
Morning is Morgan. Like things like they're just kind of close. I don't know.
Like good Morgan?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like German would be a lot easier than French. I will say that.
Yeah, for sure.
French seems like a hard language to learn. Like you can learn the simple words like counting or like hi and goodbye, but I just feel like that'd be a hard language to learn. No, we were in Peru. We had a group with us. They were a French family, and like their English wasn't bad, but they definitely had the French accent. But when they would like talk and communicate with each other, it was just so fast. And one of the girls in our group, she's from Spain, and she has been studying. She says she's studied French for like 12 years, and she still couldn't keep up with like what she was like trying to like. She's like, I'm not trying to eavesdrop. I'm just trying to keep up because I'm trying to learn this language. And she said that she still couldn't do it. So I think it's a hard language.
I'm sure it is.
I think German would be more fun though.
Mm-hmm.
So many important thinkers consider this to be Jacob's most important contribution to the study of languages. And German grammar became a national bestseller. In fact, it sold better than the fairy tales. And within a year, Jacob began working on the next edition. In 1823, a man named Edgar Taylor translated the Grimm's fairy tales into English, and it called it German Popular Stories. And for the first time, the stories were illustrated. And Taylor had asked a famous British cartoonist, George Cruikshank, to help bring the tales to life, and the book sold very well and spread the brothers' fame even further. The success of the English fairy tales inspired Jacob and Will to add illustrations to their books, and their brother Ludwig had become a well-known painter in Germany, and in 1825 they published a new edition of the tales with pictures by Ludwig
von Liechtenstein.
I don't know, you saying that just gave me like Beer Fest vibes. Do you ever see Beer Fest?
Mm-mm.
No,
never even heard of it.
it's like a competition. I think they go to Germany, and is it Germany? I don't know. They have to compete in drinking, like do these drinking games.
Oh, I thought it was a movie.
It is a movie.
Oh, okay. Nope, never heard of it, never seen it.
That's funny.
Wonder if Tony has.
Me and Tony have very similar tastes in movies, so I guarantee you Tony has seen it.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like he would have had me, because he tries to get me to watch the movies he likes, because I tend to I like dark shit, so comedy is something rare for me. I like it. We're actually watching a really funny series right now called The Righteous Gemstones. Have you seen it?
I started. That show's hilarious.
Oh my! It just gets better and better as it goes along. Because at first I was like, I don't know about this.
It's weird.
It's just
It's weird.
stupid humor, like that stupid kind of humor, which Tony loves, and I could take it or leave it, but I just kept watching, and it's hilarious. Like the daughter is so freaking funny. She's like trying to get out of doing work, and she's like, yeah, well, I just felt a gush and I gotta go get some Tamps and lay down. It's just ridiculous.
And I think it's the same woman from Violet Night.
Oh, I think you're right.
Plays also the sister. It's almost like the same personality. She's like the same character.
Hilarious. Oh my god, she kills me.
I love Adam Devine.
Adam Devine. Is he
He's one of the brothers.
the younger brother?
It's been so long since I've seen it. I think so. He's the one in all the Pitch Perfect movies.
Oh, he might be the older brother then. With the mutton chops. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
have
he
to
the
go
one with
back
the
and
mohawk?
watch it. He might be the one with the mohawk.
Okay. The youth one.
Yeah.
That works with the youth. It's so stupid.
I think that's him.
Oh
It's
my
been a
God.
long time since I've seen it. I'm not even caught up on it. And you gotta love John Goodman, so.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony and my son stayed up till like almost 4 a.m. the other night binge watching it. Dominic loves it too. It's hilarious.
Y'all need sleep in your house.
They do. This girl goes to bed. That's probably why he's sick. He doesn't rest.
Okay. So, in that same year of 1825, Will married Dorothea Wilde. Remember Dorothea? Remember Dorothea's family had contributed many fairy tales when Will was first collecting them. So for 14 years, Dorothea and Will had been close friends. Because remember from the Wilde family?
Mm-hmm.
Although I think it is weird that she has the same name as his mom. But since they were so close, maybe that's like endearing to him. The newlyweds asked Jacob to come and live with them. And a year later, in 1826, Dorothea gave birth to their first child, and they named him Jacob.
They just like keeping the names tight.
Yeah. I mean, Dorothea has to be kind of like that. Could be like, sure, your brother can come live with us. Come on, Jacob, you can come live with us. It's not a crowd at all. And we'll even name the baby after you. But within the year, the baby became ill and it did pass away.
Oh.
And the couple was heartbroken, but 2 years later, in 1828, Dorothea had a second son, Herman.
They started late. Because, I mean...
True, she also could have been younger than him.
You said that when their aunt died, they were in their late 30s, and then you said for 13 years after that, they worked in the library or whatever, wherever they were.
Yeah.
So they're up there when they started having kids. When he started having kids.
I mean, I could be wrong, but their aunt died in 1815, and then 1785. Okay, no, so they were 30.
Okay.
I think I added the date wrong. I put in the wrong date, so they were about 30 years old, 29, 30 when their aunt died.
Okay.
So when he had his first kid, yeah, so 1828, Dorothea had a second son, Herman.
Oh, they didn't name the second one Jacob too?
No, that's Herman.
Herman. Gotcha.
So in 1829, the brothers accepted jobs at the University of Göttingen. I'm not German, I'm sorry. It's in the province of Hanover, and Jacob was to be professor, and both he and Will would work in the library. Dorothea was pregnant again, and at the time, she wasn't feeling well, so she and 2-year-old Herman, they stayed behind. And 3 months later, Dorothea gave birth to another son, Rudolph.
Rudolph.
See, you're so much better at German than I am.
I probably said that completely wrong.
Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Rudolph and Herman. And during this time, Jacob didn't like teaching. It left him little time to read the books he wanted because he was always preparing lectures. It was said he didn't let his students ask questions because he didn't like to be distracted and wanted to keep control of the classroom. Whereas Will was said to be patient with his students' mistakes and was a very popular teacher. And in 1832, Dorothea gave birth to a baby girl named Augusta, and she and Will now had 3 children.
Wow.
And Jacob was a devoted uncle, of course. And a year later, in 1833, their sister Charlotte became seriously ill, and she died on June 15, 1833. And of course, they took their sister's death really hard, and it made Jacob turn his focus on studying German mythology. And Jacob's work, German Mythology, published in 1835, and completely changed how people thought about the German people and their culture. And many people knew the myths from ancient Greece and Rome, but very few of them knew any German myths. Instead, they thought ancient Germans were barbaric. And now, because of Jacob, people could read these ancient stories and see that ancient Germans were actually civilized people with a system of law and faith in the divine. And people who study German mythology today refer to the time before 1835 as, quote, before Grimm, end quote, and the years after 1835, quote, after Grimm, end quote. And 2 years later, after Jacob published German mythology, in 1837, Ernest Augustus became King of Hanover. He did not rule fairly and did not respect his people. He demanded that the university professors were to be loyal to him, even wanting them to sign an oath. Jacob and Will, along with 5 other professors, are like, no, we're not doing that. So instead, they sent a protest to the king, and they believed a ruler should not have the power to take away the people's rights. And these 7 professors became known as the Göttingen 7. Göttingen? Sorry, I have no idea. And this, of course, pissed Augustus off, so the university fired the 7 professors, and Augustus even exiled the 3 leaders, and one of them being Jacob. But many students supported their professors. They threw rocks in the windows of the professors who had obeyed the king. And Augustus, in return, told the students that if they tried to help the 7 professors, they would be charged a huge fine. So on December 17th, 1837, soldiers escorted the 3 professors, again including Jacob, to the border of Hanover. They were being forced to leave the province, and nearly 300 students walked 20 miles in the freezing cold to meet their professors at the border town of Witzenhausen. Witzenhausen. Maybe it's better if I throw a horrible German accent on it.
Do it.
Which I think German and Dutch are also very similar languages too. Because one of my friends lives in the Netherlands, so he's Dutch, and when we were hiking, he could communicate with Germans, even though he never studied German, but he said that it was easy for him to pick up. So I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like the Scandinavian countries, it's like that too. Like Swedish is very similar to Danish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to be able to communicate even if you don't know the language thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating to watch when people speak different languages and stuff, especially when they go from like one language and switch to another one right after that. I'm like, how do you guys do
Yeah.
that? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's talent.
It's not us. As a sign of loyalty to the professors and to protest to the king, they unhooked the horses from the professors' carriages, and they themselves pulled the carriages across the bridge and out of the territory of good old King Augustus. And this news ended up spreading across German provinces. Many people were proud that the professors had stood up to the king, and the bridge crossing became known as the Wissenhausen escort. So, like characters and one of their own stories, the Brothers Grimm had become folk heroes. After the escort, Jacob returned to castle, and in the fall of 1838, Will and his family joined Jacob and their younger brother Ludwig in castle. Jacob and Will had had a difficult time finding work, and many people were now scared to hire the men who had rebelled against the king. But all over Germany, students and faculty, even entire towns, collected money for the 7 professors, and soon a publisher asked the brothers to create a German dictionary. The dictionary would explain how words were used from the 16th century up to the present day, and the publisher wanted every possible German word listed with examples of how to use it in a sentence. The brothers were like, we can't do this alone. So they asked more than 50 scholars to help collect words. And they sent each scholar strips of paper that were all the same size.
They have connections. 50 scholars.
Yeah, they're becoming folk heroes. Also at this time, the brothers were asked to join the Berlin Academy, and by February they moved to Berlin. And hundreds of people would come listen to them speak and were honored for their work, and they had honored for the work they had done around the world. They literally ate dinner with princes, crowds would gather around their home and sing songs, and people would just give them gifts. France awarded Jacob with the Cross of the Legion of Honor. England made the brothers members of the Philological Society, the oldest society in Great Britain dedicated to studying language, and the United States admitted Jacob into the Academy of the Arts and Sciences. Like the Berlin Academy, it was a group of famous writers, scientists, and teachers. So basically this means important men from all over Europe traveled to Berlin just to meet the famous Brothers Grimm. And finally, in 1854, 16 years after starting the dictionary, Jacob and Will published the first volume. A. Like A beer milk? Don't know. They hadn't gotten through all the words starting with B, and the brother realized that they would never finish the dictionary in their lifetime. So it took them 16 years to get through volume A.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. They need more than 50 scholars. But how many people knew that the Brothers Grimm wrote the dictionary for Germany? In 1859, Will caught a bad fever and it grew worse, and Dorothea and Jacob were worried this would be the end. Jacob stayed at his brother's bedside all night and through the next day. There were times the fever made Will think that Jacob was not his brother, but a painting.
Oh.
And just 2 hours before he died, Will told one of his favorite stories, that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on December 16, 1859, he died.
So interesting what the brain does, like as you're dying. 'Cause when I was taking care of my grandma on her last hours, she thought I was my mom. And she kept referring to me as my mom. And just thought that was so sweet because I know that that's who she really wanted there. And my mom had left, and I think I told you this story. Maybe it was on the podcast that we were guests on. And my mom left the night before, and I was like, "Don't leave, Mom, don't leave." But yeah, she was not seeing me. She was seeing my mom.
Did you correct her?
No.
I wouldn't have either.
No, I just let her think that's because that's who she wanted to see. So
Yeah. It's like it prepares you into like peacefulness or something.
I don't know. Have I ever told you what my mom's name is?
What?
She has a very unique name. Her name is Viva.
V
Veva.
Viva?
Yeah.
What is that?
My grandma was obsessed with Elvis Presley. So my uncle's name is Elvis and my mom's name is Viva.
What? I don't know Elvis Presley that well.
Viva
Was it
Las
like
Vegas.
stop it.
But she changed the spelling.
Viva? I actually like that.
Yeah.
She probably
Viva
hates
D.
it. Viva D.
Yeah. I think she likes it and it suits her so well because her personality is like so big. So, but yeah, my grandpa would always call me Little Vive because I look very much like my mom. So I'm sure that's why my grandma was
Oh.
seeing her.
Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
cute. I like that. I like that.
I'll be sure to let her know that you like her name.
It's unique, and I like unique names. I just not crazy unique. Like naming your daughter Apple or something.
Yeah.
I don't like that type of unique. Or Sunday. I don't. I forget which celebrity named her daughter Sunday.
I don't know.
I don't like that type of unique. It's kind of funny that they have those names and then you're Jessica.
I know.
Such a popular name.
Well, the 80s, man. The 80s. Jessica was so popular in the 80s.
Jessica.
I've never liked my name ever since I was a little girl. I hated my name.
I like the name Jessica. I just know like 50 Jessicas.
Really? I don't know very many Jessicas. And any Jessica that I've ever met is always a blonde.
Yeah,
And
I went to
most
school with
people,
a lot of Jessicas.
were they blonde?
I think
Yeah.
I'm getting old now.
But most people, I don't know so much anymore, but like I was always told I look like a Jennifer. I'm like, really? Like
A Jennifer?
at that point, just Jessica is so close. Yeah.
No, you definitely look like an Elvira.
I don't think I would like that name. If I was named Elvira, I'd be like,
You look
man, why did
more.
you name me that?
You just look someone more with like a darker name.
Yeah.
Because you're dark hair and bangs. Like, even if your name was Wednesday, I'd be like, that suits you.
Well, I do have I've gone by Luna for a very long time as my like work alias, but I stopped doing that when I left my last job and it was so weird to get used to that because I'm just used to being called Luna because of my like gaming side of me. Like you have a gamer tag and that was always my gamer tag and all of my characters are named Luna and I was just used to it. So like readjusting to not introducing myself as Luna at work was really hard to do. And I debated whether or not I was going to go by Luna or Jessica on here. But I'm like, you know what? I better stick with Jessica because then I'm going to get really confused at work.
I like Luna though, like Luna
Yeah.
Rain. That suits you because Rain's your middle name.
Yeah. Well, it's not completely my middle name, but we won't go there. Thanks, Mom.
Even
I
if your
just
name was
edited
like
it a little bit.
even if your name was Storm, I'd be like, I see it.
That's really weird because a video game I've been playing for almost 10 years, it's an MMO. My character's name is Luna Storm.
Really?
Yeah.
See? Synchronicities. Synchronicities. Yeah, so 3 o'clock, December 16th, 1859, Will passed away. They placed his body in his study, and Jacob kept coming to the room to look at the brother and best friend he would never see again. And for a while, all of Will's books and papers were kept just as he had left them so that a painter could record Will's study. And before Will's death, Jacob finished Will's last project for him. Jacob also sent the publisher the second piece of the dictionary which Will had finished. It went up to the letter D, and Jacob then sent to work on the next 2 volumes of the dictionary. Jacob took a trip to the mountains, but when he got back home, he caught a cold and soon developed into a more serious illness. And in the September of 1863, Jacob suffered a stroke. He couldn't move his right arm, and he could no longer speak. And it's said that at one point, Jacob looked intensely at a photograph of Will, and then just after 10 o'clock in the evening on September 20th, 1863, Jacob died. Today we remember Jacob and Will Grimm most of their fairy tales. Their fairy tales live on because they teach us to see the world differently, with dragons and witches in difficult times, but also beautiful princesses, brave princes, daring quests, and happily ever afters. Next to the Bible, Children's and Household Tales is still the most widely read book in Germany, and the Grimm's fairy tales have been translated into more than 160 different languages and have been illustrated by hundreds of artists. They have also been adapted into countless movies, plays, and television shows. Wilhelm Grimm once wrote, quote, "In the fairy tales, a world of magic is opened up before us, one which still exists among us in secret forests, in underground caves, and in the deepest sea, and it is still visible to children." End quote. The work of the Brothers Grimm certainly has earned its place in the hearts and on the bookshelves of children. So that's the Brothers Grimm. And I know this one is pretty much, like I said, just history on them. And then next time we'll go into like the dark stuff of the Brothers Grimm.
Can't wait.
But we needed a background who they are. I think they're fascinating.
They are. I didn't realize that they were clearly they're intelligent to do what they did, but I didn't realize how much.
They were a huge influence on Germany and I think all over the world. And I think people just see them as like, oh yeah, so they wrote fairy tales.
Mm-hmm. That's all I knew.
So I think they did a lot on where history is today, and they're just, I don't know, they're very fascinating.
They are. What a good choice of a subject.
I mainly did it because I wanted to learn about them more myself, and I was like, okay, I'll just do the different stories, the different differences between the stories. Then I was like starting to read about them, and I'm like, you know what, these are actually interesting guys. So
yeah, they definitely are.
Definitely were, yeah.
Definitely were.
So if you want to go watch the movie, watch at your own risk.
Yeah, because it definitely does not portray them how they actually were at all.
No, and I probably should have watched the movie before I did the research because I'm like, what? That's not true. That's not true. So, and even some fairy tales they had in the movie weren't even their fairy tales. Like Jack and the Beanstalk. That's not the Brothers Grimm, but he had the magic beans and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and their British accents.
And
So yeah. That's all she wrote.
The end. Goodbye.
The end.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing part 2 and hope that you have safe travels for the next week.
Thank you.
You will be missed.
I hope so. All right. Well, guys and ghouls, you can find us on all the social medias: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, X, and you can email us at weeklybazaardpodcast@gmail.com. You can send in stories, what you want to hear, all the above, etc. You can follow us you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/weeklybazard. It's only $5 a month, and it does really help us out. And we keep evolving, and we're, growing, and we're learning as we go. And we put a lot of work and dedication into this podcast, so we would truly appreciate it.
Our little passion project.
But even if you want to join Patreon, we still love you guys for the support.
Absolutely.
Did I get it?
You did great.
All right, guys, if it's weird,
we're going to talk about it.
Bye.
Bye.